Hey guys, Jay Hoyt here. Before this video gets started, first of all, we've hit two of our big goals on our platforms. The first one being Twitch. This week we've been streaming all week long and we're still streaming. We've started at 99 followers. We're now, I believe, like 114, 115 or so. So we've gained a bunch of new friends, a bunch of new, supporters over there. So if you want to support me over there, my link is down below in the description. Same thing over on Twitter. We gained, I think it was like 2 or 3 followers. So now we're at 100. But our next milestone we need to get to is YouTube. We are still 5 subscribers away from 200, so if you haven't yet, make sure you do so and help me out to hit my goals. But we got our 9th episode of our CDL roster preview with the Florida Mutineers. What's going on, guys? Jay Hoyt back with you today. Welcome back to Call of Duty Black Ops 4. We got some dual Slayer, like just absolute frying from myself and my friend Ben. His links will be down below. But today, like I said in the intro, is our 9th video here on the CDL roster preview. This time we got the Florida Mutineers. So as we like to start these videos, what did this team do last year? So this team was consisted of a lot of different players because they did make some roster changes throughout the year. Starting with Pristini, then you had Havoc, Mox, Skies, Frosty, Awakening, and rest in peace, Pharaoh was on this squad. This team was pretty strange, right? Throughout the year, they started off on a weird note, right? They started 5th through 8th at the launch weekend, which, launch weekend was just kind of like, hey, here's all of our teams. Let's just throw them in competition and kind of see what happens. Then they get 2nd at Atlanta, which was weird because they weren't really predicted as one of the top teams. Then they come back from Atlanta, go to LA, where they finished 5th, 6th. So it's like, okay, was that a fluke? Maybe it wasn't. Then they go and finish 1st at Dallas. Okay, weird. Then they come home, go to then their Florida event, which was then 1st. Like, okay, back and forth. What are we doing here? Then they go, like I said, then they go to Minnesota, which they got 1st. Then they go to Paris, they get 1st. London, 3rd, 4th. Then Toronto, 7th, 8th. Or I'm sorry, 5th, 6th at Toronto, and then 7th, 8th at Champs. So how does this team go from bad to good to bad to good to bad to really good for like a couple events in a row, then like decreases a little bit, then just kind of gets worse towards the rest of the year? Well, I don't know. I think this team kind of had its moments of brilliance and had some really just kind of like really strange luck to them, where, obviously with last year's Pro League, everything was really weird. The whole system that they had, the only 8 teams are there, so not every team is there. Honestly, I mean, I've said this before, if you're going to have a Pro League, you're going to have everyone play each other, or at least if there's like a conference, or like East and West conferences, then they're going to need to play, that conference more than the other ones. But in this case, there's only 12 teams, so that's not really the case. So these teams should have been playing each other way more than they did, and especially with not all teams going to every event. That's just really weird. Like, hopefully this year they have a better system and better matches. But either way, we'll move on from that one. So this team, like I said, was very good. Then they were bad, good, bad, good, bad. They just kept going back and forth. You could never really get a sure sign of consistency through this team. And like I said, with the system that they had, they always face either the same teams or, the worst teams, let's just say. So this team was an average team, if you ask me. Like, realistically, this team was average. If you average their placing across all the year, I think they finished in every spot possible. So you never really knew what you were going to get out of this team. So heading towards Champs, they just won 3 events total, right? They got 2nd once, they got 3rd, 4th, so they were mostly in a good spot. And then they get to Champs, and then they finish 7th, 8th. So this team was weird. I don't really know what to say, but going into this year, they kept 3 out of their, I guess, 7 or 8 players or whatever that they had throughout the entire year. So they kept 3 out of their, like, what, 8 players or something that they had. So Pristini was already on Chicago. He now moves over to Seattle. Havoc stays there. Mox got dropped. Skies remains. Frosty goes back to Halo. Pharaoh obviously passed away, and Awakening stays on this squad. So the roster you have after this that you kept from this squad was Havoc, Skies, and Awakening, and then they kind of waited a while, and then eventually picked up Slacked. And then they pick up Slacked from Seattle, which kind of a questionable pick if you ask me, especially given that this team needs more to it, but also this team was relatively younger, if you ask me. I think Sky's relatively young. Havoc's still like low to mid 20s, I believe. And then Awakening is obviously brand new. He made his, I guess, rookie year last year. But looking at this upcoming year, what are we thinking for this team now? So I don't really know, honestly. But I think if one thing you need to look forward to this team is this team needs consistency, right? Last year, they were all over the place. They would do bad, do good, do bad, do good, do bad, but do good for like 2-3 events in a row, then do bad the rest of the, like, it just, consistency, right? You want, if you're consistently placing 3rd, 4th, or you're, 5th, 6th or something all throughout the entire year, that's consistency. Or if you get better, that's consistency, or you're working to get better. But this team, like I said, was all over the place. So you need good performances out of Slacked, right, after the horrible year he had last year with Seattle. Then you have, Skies, who needs to be one of their best players. Havoc, who needs to stay consistent. You can't have him dropping 12 and 30. You just can't have him doing that. And then Awakening needs to continue what he did last year, right? He was one of their best players last year. After he joined, he needs to continue that this year. So what do I think of this team? I would say middle of the pack. If this team stays consistent, you might have them push for a top 6 spot. But I would say this team right now I would probably put in the 4 to 8 list, right? Obviously the top 4, I don't want to say it's pretty solidified, but is hard to get into, especially when there's so many unknowns on some of these other teams. But I would say 4 to 8 playoff team. That's hard because there's a lot of bubble teams. There's a lot of teams in the middle of the pack. But like I said, if they stay consistent, if they place better than people are expecting, this team also has a huge underdog mentality looking at them. So if they can stay consistent, if they can upset some teams, this team might be in that top 6. But if this team just doesn't perform and nothing's really happening, you'll see roster changes, you'll see changes to a lot of different things on this team, and maybe you'll have to look at something else to try to make this team work. I would say middle of the pack team, playoff team. I'm gonna say yes. I think they squeak in. I don't think it's gonna be 100% they're in, but we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, once we get there. But with all that being said, guys, that's going to be it for the Florida Mutineers. If you did enjoy, hit that like button down below. Put all your thoughts and comments down below in that comment section. And if you haven't yet, help me hit my goal of 200 subscribers here on YouTube by hitting that subscribe button if you're new or if you just haven't yet. But with all that being said, guys, see you next time.